Welcome to the show. I'm Matty Marshall. Excited to have Nate Schroeder here today. And Nate has just had such an amazing comeback story. He's blown his shoulder out multiple times. He's been on some top teams, went back to his boys, Seattle Uprising, and they saved their season at this last event. I mean, they really were faced with a situation where if they had two bad events in a row, we could have seen them relegated to the semi-pro division, and they've been pros for a while. They beat some top teams and just really not fulfilled their potential. But this new incarnation, this new line for Seattle Uprising is incredibly impressive. They narrowly lost in overtime in the quarterfinals to Tampa Bay Damage, the team that went on to win the last event in Chicago. So also mark your calendars as November 8th through the 10th, the most important event of the year is going down. It's going to be the World Cup in Orlando, Florida. And our thoughts definitely go out to everyone affected by the hurricanes, plural, as there's been multiple hurricanes that have battered Florida and the Carolinas. And anyone that's spent any time in Florida definitely knows some people that, we were just sending texts like, hey, how are you guys doing? How's it looking? So luckily it looked like they were spared the worst of it, but kind of have to see how it plays out. Also, Ryan Greenspan with the Spick and Span show has been doing a fundraiser, so check that out as well, too. So without any further ado, going to jump into this conversation here with Nate Schroeder and hear his story because it's a very compelling paintball story. And I'm really excited about this new look for Seattle Uprising because they look legit. I mean, they were really good. Nate, welcome to the show. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Matty.
Of course. So, dude, I'm excited to finally bring you on the show here after this crazy adventure you've been on, this crazy adventure that Uprising has been on, because as of before the last event started, you guys were kind of sitting down bottom of the barrel. You personally started out the year with Infamous and then had come back from, multiple instances of blowing your shoulder out. And we didn't know. And you were such a phenomenal talent coming up. I remember when you first were playing with the Ironmen and Vicious, and we're going to talk about your career. But, we started calling you Nasty Nate and just because you were just so fun to watch. And you had that, that big chip on your shoulder and you just played like you were 10 foot tall. With how you were kind of mastering the offensive level of the game. And so when you did go down, we didn't know if we were going to see you again. It was very disappointing for Todd and myself and a lot of fans of the game. So let's just jump right into it, man. Let's first start with this last event. So you make, because I do want to dive back a little bit into this. I believe an incredibly compelling story. There's probably people out there that are dealing with some sort of injuries that I feel could find a lot of inspiration in how you fought back from what a lot of people thought, like, there's no way he's coming back after that second time you blew your shoulder out. So definitely want to get your thoughts on that. But, since it's fresh in our minds, what was going on in your mind as you went over to Uprising to start out this new adventure with the boys? Because, I mean, you came up in that area and obviously those, again, are your boys from back in the day. And then you went on your own adventure. Mm-hmm. But what was going on in the minds of the Uprising players before this last event?
So coming back, I think there's a lot going on in the camp. The roster went from being like bare bones at the beginning of the year to now we've got 11, even 12 players active on our roster. So it's just a lot of personnel management. Coming in, they welcomed me with open arms and let me come in with my leadership style, and started immediately introducing new calls, really big into how we structure practice and make sure it's the most efficient. Big reason why I did come back when I did was because they didn't have another team to practice going into Chicago. And if they were going to be traveling to play another team, I likely wasn't going to be able to come back at this time. So not having another pro team to practice, focusing on the internal, that was our main focus going into the event. Seeing, what we could do to optimize practice with the, two full lines that we had and really hit on what we needed to so that we could kind of establish what our identity would be on this layout and trying to figure out what the meta would be so that we could easily counter if teams were giving us maybe some perceived looks that we didn't know or we didn't fully understand how to combat those. So it was just a lot of like heads down work. I put more time into preparation this event than I think I ever have, even with Infamous taking the multiple days off leading up to the event, staying through the week. I was just really doing my homework heavy, and trying to get us to where we needed to be so that we could perform.
How is it as far as, because this team has been around for a while now, and I always speak about Uprising in glowing terms because I still remember that night after the event in Chantilly and outside of Paris when you guys had won the semi-pro division, and Tommy Tucker was like, "We're Matt," and he was just like this close away from my face after a bunch of beers, and he's just like, "We're going pro," and like he was just reading me the riot act. He's like, "We're going pro," and some of the guys are like, "No, I don't know if that's going to be a good idea. Why don't we just see how it plays next year because it's going to be expensive." And he was adamant about it. He's like, "We are going pro. We're going to be able to beat big teams," which was true. I mean, you guys have beat some big teams over the years, but it's been a long road. I mean, that was that was years ago. That was, I think, 2000 and what was it? I have it down in my notes. 2016. So that was late 2015 is when I had that conversation with Tommy at that little, hole in the wall bar across the street from the hotel. But I love that cocky confidence, man, because that's the story of every pro team. And then, so then, we go through, now I do want to talk about Uprising's history a little bit, because you're familiar with that, but you did kind of go on your own adventure. But what is, as far as like leadership, mentality, because it's been a while and now your backs were against the wall. So you're saying you put a ton of time in. You picked up some of these new players. Mark was a huge addition. Alex been really solid for you guys. And then they picked you up, so talk to me about, flesh that out for me a little bit, because I feel that that's a huge part of this story. It's like you guys are potentially opening up a new chapter for Uprising's pro adventure here.
Yeah, so I obviously have been keeping my eye on Uprising very closely because, like you mentioned, those are my best buds, my best friends. I lived with Alex and Graham for a while, taught them everything they know. They came up on my divisional team when we were playing through the PSP ranks, and so lately in recent years, like it's so hard to watch them underperform, knowing that they can just do so much better than they have been. So recently with the changes Jimmy Hickey has made coming on as an owner and really establishing a coaching system, because it takes a village to run a legit professional organization. So bringing Tyler Mashad in, Dusty Court from DBS. He's assistant coaching right now. So they've really got all the pieces. I should say, have all the pieces to really rise to, and no pun intended, but rise up to be that next level in terms of a higher tier team. So yeah, I liked everything where they were heading, and I saw that there's a big opportunity that they needed a on-field and off-field leader. So came right in, started telling them how I think it should be done, and they're like, "All right, yeah, let's do it. Let's whatever needs to happen, let's make it happen."
Well, you're a really smart guy, and you're definitely super experienced now, and you've been on some teams with multiple different leaders, so you do have a ton of info to download to the boys. Tyler Mouchot is a name that casual fans that have not been watching the game since, the mid 2000s won't remember his name. But Tyler was an all-star. I mean, he played on Excessive when we were really good in winning tournaments. He played on San Diego Dynasty. I mean, he was a coveted guy that was a mercenary. There was an insanely good player, incredible competitor. I loved playing with Tyler. I hated playing against him. He was a madman out there. And when I found out that you guys had picked him up, I'm like, okay, that's genius. Started talking to him because, we're boys from back in the day. And he gives me the no bullshit assessment on, the team and how it's looking and who you guys are playing, or, getting reps against other squads, how hard that is when you're, sitting bottom of the barrel, et cetera, et cetera. We've had some discussions about it. But when they picked you guys up and I was like, how's it looking? He's like, we got Mark. He's like, Mark's crushing it in the snake. We got Nate. Alex. He basically just kind of essentially called exactly what happened at the tournament. Like, he's like, we got veterans with the guys that have been on the team for a while. Nate's going to be a huge asset. He's going to plug right in. He's going to be a leader. Alex, really good. People are sleeping on him. And then Mark's a beast in the snake. Dude, game over, bro. We're making Sunday. And I was like, okay, it's hasn't happened yet so far this year, but that's exactly what happened. So how's your relationship with Tyler, and kind of how's the leadership going down on that side of things? Yeah. That's, like you said, it takes a village. That's crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tyler and the core of Uprising go way back. So he was always that guy from the Northwest that like had the big contracts, played for Dynasty, never saw him at the field, right? Because why would he go play a bunch of divisional kids? So he was just kind of like that outside influence that that had his ties in with another local team. And eventually, once we got to Division One as DBS kids, he was able to come in and play with us. And so that's when we really started forming the relationship. Me, Alex, Graham, Brandon, Joel, Tyler playing together, and with Dusty, of course. And yeah, he just always has been that super confident guy. Like I remember at one tournament, we drew like a random team that had come up from D2, and we got like a scouting report on them that they weren't looking that good. And I like made a comment to Tyler. I was like, "Well, at least our first game sounds like it's gonna be a layup." And he was like, "Are you seriously worried about a D2 team right now?" And so like I always think of that. Like he's like just always been the guy that's like, man, like don't even worry about who's out there. Like you guys are better. And so I think that is something that Uprising really needed, like having that guy that we always looked up to come in and just really, I think the best part about having Tyler as a coach is like he'll admit he's like, I've never coached before. Like you guys are gonna have to show me what you want and I'll make it happen. And so just his confidence on top of being a sponge in the coaching role has really helped us, come in and be that team that we know we can be. We don't know exactly what our identity looks like or how we're going to execute on different types of layouts, but everybody's on board to make changes in the right direction.
So let's talk about. We'll start with the. We'll kind of walk it back from that damage game because, I mean, that damage game was at close again. You lost to the team in overtime that won the event. Tampa Bay Damage was outstanding at the last event. They were undefeated, with a plus 18. And I mean, they beat up on Blast Camp. They narrowly, and then they beat you guys twice, but each time was by 1 point. So you played them twice, and they had a hard time beating you guys. Styles make fights, and styles make gunfights too, as we always say. And your guys' style definitely matched up perfectly because you kind of play like Tampa Bay. You're willing to take risks when you need to. You're not scared to play offensive paintball, but you understand that it's probably in our best interest to get to good spots and play smart from those spots and let the opportunity, present itself and create an opportunity if need be. Damage plays the exact same style. And so you guys, basically played 3-2 ball games. But other than that, Damage was pretty outstanding. They beat Impact. They beat X Factor by 3 in the final game after X Factor was able to beat Legion. Anyway, it was just incredibly impressive, bro. It was incredibly impressive to see what a night and day difference to have you guys get a top 8 performance. But it was a blow for blow match back and forth. So bring me into what was going on in your minds as you guys are kind of, winding things down in that match. Was there a moment where you're like, maybe we should play for this win in that last point, and then it went to overtime, and then unfortunately you guys got, a tough break in overtime by losing those 2 bodies. But let's start with that, that last point. It's tied 2-2. There's a couple minutes on the clock, pretty even on the count. What was going on in your mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, after the event, I'd felt like, I'd done everything I could, or like to an extent, like anything beyond of what I could have done on the personal level probably would have been a stretch. And that's how I felt like, the day after. But then going back and watching the footage, it's like, man, I really dropped the ball in that point before overtime. We had a kill off the snake side. It was 5-on-4. We had 2 minutes to make it happen. I slip into the snake behind Mark, and I'm telling him like, hey, it's just Keith and Rainey in front of you. Like, and I don't know what he's doing up there, if he's like baiting or something. So at some point my mind just switched to like, they're not going to give us anything over here. Let's try to go win on the Dorito side. So that's when I'm trying to like get the comms over to Joel and Alex, or maybe it was Graham, but like, hey, let's go win down the Dorito side. And then that's when I tried to kind of come through the middle and make something happen. And hindsight's 2020. I should have just crawled up there with Mark and the snake and be like, yeah, tapped him on the shoulder and said, let's go dig Keith out. We got 2 minutes, like something needs to happen. And we were just content going to overtime. And in that moment, I thought I did everything I could. And now, like I said, looking back, I should have just crawled down the snake with Mark and forced the issue down that side. So that sucked. Excuse me. So that sucked. Definitely it was our game to win. I think it was our tournament to win, honestly. Like a lot of teams that I think Joey said it on one of the podcasts, like everybody had a pretty sloppy event. Like, teams like Dynasty not making it out of prelims, like, it was a really hard pill to swallow. It wasn't like one of the other losses that I've had on Sunday where like, most recently or World Cup last year, Impact just beat the shit out of us when I was on Infamous. So it's like that sucked, but I got over it pretty quickly. You got to do better, But this was like this just been hanging on me like a dark cloud. Like, man, I really, really dropped the ball on that last point. And then going into overtime, Mark wasn't supposed to go to snake off the break. He blew that. Went snake, got shot. I apparently slid, and when I stood up, my pinky toe touched the out of bounds, so ref wasn't going to give me a break. Yep. Yeah. So I'm never going to let that happen again either.
Well, just so in overtime, when I was watching it happen, I was like, dude, holy shit, Uprising is hanging with damage right now. Like we knew Uprising was looking good, and they dropped a 1-point game in the prelims to them. And, coming off of the wild card win against the Ironmen 3-1, but it was just blow for blow, move for move. It was a really good game. Some longer points, but I don't mind longer points. It's like in the UFC, I don't mind watching a jiu-jitsu match if guys are trying submissions. That's fine. So it was still an entertaining match, and it was super close. And then that overtime starts, and it's just like Mark dies, you die, and it was just 5-on-3. And I'm like, in my head, I was thinking, again, I've got a lot of friends on Damage, but I'm always, kind of rooting for Uprising just because they've just been underperforming for a while and has not delivered on the promise. I think the talent that exists on that team. And after a pretty good run, anyway, it was like a very anticlimactic overtime. And I was like, oh man, I was hoping this would be like 4-on-4, 5-on-5. These guys would throw down. It would come down to 1-on-1s or something crazy. But then they just kind of smothered you guys after that, after losing, basically you guys. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering how the hell you died, because I watched it a bunch of times and I'm like, man, I don't know if Nate got shot. How did he die?
Yeah. Yep. Good old fashioned slid out of bounds. So is what it is. They called it Omara on it in the wild card match, and I guess J-Rab got pulled on it too. So it's not just a me thing, but definitely wish there was some consideration of how big the moment is and how much impact you have by standing up and touching your toe out of bounds. So, but that's the way it goes. That's paintball. Obviously, it wasn't our moment, wasn't our time, and just happy to see the Damage, play the same style of ball we did and, take it all the way. So my hat's off to those guys.
So let's talk a little bit about, we just, talking about Uprising is that, teams have been pro since 2016, smashed people in semi-pro to get there, earn the right to play in the pro division. But since then, it's just been a steady dose of frustration. A fourth place here, a fifth place. You guys, got fourth in Philly in 2019, a fifth in 2017, and a sixth at World Cup, and eighth. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like Uprising will get there now. And we'll talk about your own adventure in a second, because you went on to kind of do your own thing. But as far as the squad, and they've had a pretty core group for that whole time. I mean, Graham Arnold and Alexander Borromeo, Scotty Knight, Olsen. They had Olsevik for a while, and Creek that were kind of their go-to guys. Eaton has been on the team for a while as well too. So I mean, just from having talked to the guys, how frustrating is it for them to know that they just haven't really lived up to their potential? To know that when we look at that to be able to go out and beat an Impact or to beat a Legion, teams that have that Uprising has beat in the past, and then just not put it together on the Sundays where you make it, and then or have like a soul crushing penalty. I mean, how frustrating is that? Because this is a story that probably a lot of divisional guys, that thousands of people that watch these things, this is a story often told. I mean, you play for a while, things don't go your way. How do you stay focused? I mean, yeah, it's fun to play with your boys, but how's that mentality on the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard watching them, because I play with them every weekend, even before I came over. So feel like they kind of got in the mentality as they're going through the motions, and that, if they're just so close, they're just, just one overtime point away and they make Sunday. And so, but there's been these little boosts of confidence with, like, the new coaching system, that kind of thing. So I think with me coming back, it added that extra level of confidence. And then me coming back and saying, like, hey, we're going to do practices differently from here on out, and this is how we're going to do it. And so now they have, like, the micro goals to focus on. And whereas before, I think that they weren't really, like, maybe saying, like, hey, maybe we need to take a big change so that we can, get past those little baby step things. That's just my take. But as far as, like, the core group goes, one thing that I had really observed before coming back is they had guys playing the lesser experienced guys playing the, like, very crucial, important spots. So I told him, I was like, man, it'd be great if you guys stop playing defense so much, because anytime you get up 1 point, teams just straight up come back, and that's the worst thing to watch. B, like, let's have your guys that that will make the right move, split the seam up the middle, or, like, take the advantageous gunfight, like the Grahams, the Alex Borromeos, the Brandon Olsons. Like, let's get those guys in spots to make things happen, instead of sending one of the newer guys up, try to make something happen. It doesn't work. Now you've got your core group playing 4-on-5 or 3-on-5, and there's not much room for pulling points back when you're playing down bodies. So yeah, I mean, I think by me coming back, we got a better mindset. We're still working on our identity, and the coaching staff is really on board with making the changes needed.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing up the constant frustration for a long period of time, for years, is that with this new coaching staff, with you coming in, with these, Alec and Mark have been, dude, they were amazing. I mean, Alec had huge moments for you guys. Mark was, I mean, there was one point in time during the show, I was, rewatch, because we're creating some content for World Cup. And I'm watching this, and I had said, I'm like, they might as well just let Mark start in Snake 2 or Snake 1, because he's just omnipresent there. I mean, he got shot off the break maybe once, the whole prelims, maybe twice. I mean, he was just always in there, rarely died in that spot. He was so clutch over there. Alec was super clutch too, Holland. And then obviously with all the talent, the guys that we've been talking about for years. And I really do truly think that if you guys can keep this together, continue to practice the intelligent way, and keep this going into the future, like, this is going to be a team that people are going to have to really worry about on Sundays. I think it's going to be a team that's going to make a lot of Sundays. It could make a deep run. That's kind of one of those things. It's like, until you put up 250 on the bench, dude, we don't know if you can. But I really think that Uprising has a legit chance with all the experience that they've, gathered, and how hungry they are for greatness after all this frustration. I think this is a scary team to play right now. What was the concrete change, Nate, that you guys made in practice? So when you're talking about micro goals, because when I coach teams, it drives me a bit crazy when guys just show up and play points, and they play every point like it's the first point of the game, and then that's it. It's like, we're just scrimmaging guys to play the first point of the tournament. This makes no sense. So, what sort of micro goals and what sort of wisdom from all your big long journeys are you trying to bring in to make this team better?
Yeah. So the big thing that I really wanted us to hit on was, like, a point can go 3 minutes. And if we come off and only talk about the last 30 seconds, then that doesn't help us at all, because what's going to happen in the last 30 seconds? Either somebody's going to do something stupid on the other team. We're going to do something stupid. Somebody's going to make a shot. It is what it is. Like, let's figure out what happened before then, and really get that real-time feedback so that we can correct it the next point. And so we're trying to do that with, every team records their practices, but what we're doing is we're trying to watch that footage, like, after the point immediately, because we can go back to the hotel after playing 40, 50 points, watch the 40, 50 points, and be like, oh yeah, I got to remember to do that tomorrow. And you're not going to remember, because, you got a million other things to worry about. Whereas if you see yourself doing it 20 seconds, 30 seconds after the point's over, then you're much more likely to make that correction the next point. So that's one big thing. On top of that, like we have like a whole new set of calls that we're using, and that should be helping us contain. We didn't do a great job of it this past event, but if we could also get that feedback that, hey, this was a great opportunity to make that containment call, and then we can then, really tighten down, and finish out the point. And just being able to focus on, what happens mid game, because so many times it's like I said, what happened in the last 30 seconds doesn't help you at all in terms of feedback. It's what led up to that point.
Do you mean midpoint, as in like what happened?
Yeah, midpoint. Yeah. Yep. So the breakout happens. Yeah. We get a kill off the break and that kind of thing, but it's after that. It's the secondary. Sorry, I'm gonna have to mute. That's my security system.
he's on point right now, bro. Yeah. So no, I think that's pretty crucial. I do agree. I mean, you guys did an okay job of containment, but there was a couple, going back and rewatching the games and taking my notes, there was some instances where you would create an advantage and then not be able to contain, let the team fill out and get that outside, because keeping out, as anyone, if you're a divisional player and you're watching, I talked to my divisional guys about this. If we lose one side and you guys are all trapped on one side and we haven't shot anybody, and if no one can get out, we're for sure going to lose that point. I mean, there's an 85% chance, unless a major penalty happens or something crazy. You never know. It's paintball, especially down into the divisions. But there's a reason why you constantly see pro bodies flooding out outside wide when they lose those players in front of them. There's a specific reason for that. And there was a couple instances where you guys weren't able to contain after creating a drastic advantage for yourselves. But still, man, I mean, dude, I've been watching Uprising play every single point of their pro paintball lives, and it was just a breath of fresh air to watch a ton of execution, very little mistakes, very little soul crushing penalties. When you guys were up points or bodies, it was great, man. I mean, the trajectory for the team is going the right way, and with this new mindset, new bodies, new coaching, it's like I really do truly think that it's just a matter of time before you guys are there on Sunday, threatening maybe for a win, man. That's another thing. Talk to me about that. I mean, you've been on some, teams that are expected to win. If you go on the Ironmen, you're expected to win. They had some big droughts until 2020. It's been a while since Infamous has won a tournament, but you were there for a while. But when Infamous goes to an event, it's either we won or we failed. For a team that's never won, at least at the pro division, because Uprising did crush a lot of souls in the lower divisions and has crushed a lot of souls at some local events, guesting with people. So they do know what it feels like to win a paintball event, but never a pro event. Again, I think fourth is the best. I got a bunch of notes here I have to check real quick, but I think fourth is the best you guys have ever done. I think that it's like, how do you give that to guys, right? Like, there's no way to give it to people. Like, you have to have that big, as we always say, you have to play with a chip on your shoulder. I mean, do you guys, I hope you guys think this way. Do you guys feel like you could go out and win World Cup right now? That's what I'd be thinking if I'm Uprising. I know it's a tall order, but why not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's always been the goal. I think me leaving and going to Infamous was so that I could, have all the resources in place so that I could win a tournament. And now that I've gotten that experience, there's no reason why I can't do it with Uprising. We've won a lot of tournaments together. We've won series. Me and Alex won the CXBL in Canada. So I think that the guys know that it's close, that we're making steps in the right direction, especially, seeing how Damage just, took it home after they told us, and afterwards, that we were the toughest team they played, and we did our jobs the best, and they had that confidence that they were going to win the tournament after they beat us. So there's no reason why we can't carry the same level of confidence, knowing that we should have not blown that point before overtime, and then we would have coasted into finals and first place as well.
I mean, if you stack up the two games you played against Damage at that event, it would have been a 6-4 loss for you guys after 30 minutes of paintball. Actually, no. Well, that overtime point didn't go that long, but but still, it was,
Yeah.
like I said, bro, it was impressive, dude. Uprising looked impressive. Let's talk about that roster a little bit here, because why did Uprising look impressive? Well, lots of execution. Real estate was taken. Mark was getting in the snake. You were very mobile behind Mark as that second attacker. The D side, was typically eaten, but Borromeo, Arnold as well too. You had a couple threats up the middle. You shot some bodies on the break. Kind of talk to me about how you guys were managing. Again, you do have a little bit of a deeper roster, but I kept seeing, and saying very similar names over and over and over again. And to me, the two of the standouts were Mark and Alec. And those are names that I have not said for Uprising before. Because again, it's been a rough year for them. But Mark was so good in the snake. He was, and I was told, it's like I hear about guys before I see them, but I kept hearing about Mark, and then he's been there, some events this year, but then he showed up and performed like I was told he had the possibility to do. And then Alec was just so consistent for you guys. And then you add that in with, Eaton, it's been on the team for a long time, and these other names we've been talking about on Uprising for a while. It was a stud lineup, man. It was a stud lineup. So maybe go snake side over to D side and talk about what you were seeing from your boys.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, big roster going into the event. We really didn't know how the rotation was going to work. We were pretty sure we weren't going to go with 2 lines. Excuse me. But, Mark, very consistent in the snake. We're going to run him as much as we could. Wasn't really sure. We have me, Alex, and Graham. We're kind of the next 3 that we're going to play the insert. Then back center, we knew it was going to be a combination of Alec, Graham, maybe myself, Brandon Olson, Alex Borromeo maybe as well. So that was kind of what we were thinking for the starting line and the snake and center presence. And then, we had good support as well, like Shane Howell, to give Mark breaks if we needed it. And then on the Dorito side, Joel was our one over there. He does really well in those types of layouts where he can play pretty aggressive, but also he's been playing long enough to know that it's going to be a controlled aggression type layout, and that's I think played to his strengths. And then it was a matter of who we put behind him. If it was Alex or Graham, even Alec played over there at practice. And then we got a couple extra development guys. We just recently picked up Javier Lin. Me and Alex used to play with him on Fusion. He was always a guy that was really, really intelligent. Actually took some time off paintball to go get like 5 degrees from UC Berkeley, and now he works in AI, so he's just like killing it on the personal career path. And and I've been hitting him up year after year, like, hey man, if you ever want to play paintball again, like let me know, like I'll get you a tryout, doesn't matter where I'm at. And so everything came together, so we got him back, got him on the squad, and he's, like I said, development player that we're gonna looking forward to really getting him the reps he needs to help out, give Joel those different looks. And then we got Phil from down in Arizona. He's been solid for us, doing anything he can as a team player. So, we're super deep, but we really weren't sure if we're going to run 2 lines or not. And then as the layout came out, we were kind of like, looking at it, trying to figure out who wanted to play where. Traditionally, I don't play on the snake side, but I knew that spot going into that first Aztec, and, picking whether or not you're going to kind of do the dance, shoot back, and then stutter step, and then slide in. I knew that was like a high risk, high reward spot. And I knew it was going to be either me and Graham. And in my mind, I was like, well, I definitely want Graham to be alive to finish points. So like, let me get majority of reps over here. But then as it broke down, we were really expecting to have Graham be on the starting 5, but Alec was just shooting so many people off the break that, we had to give him the starting nod. And so really got to give the new kid, call him Alec. We call him Holly on the team because Alec and Alex sound so much alike. So next time you're calling his name on the webcast, you can just refer to him Holly. But yeah, so Holly did great shooting off the break. Yep. Mark.
Yeah,
Mark obviously missing
my job a lot easier.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. And the thing I love about these new guys is Mark just is so happy to be there. Like he loves paintball, and he loves, even after he gets bunkered by like Keith, he's like, dude, that was awesome. Like I bunkered by Keith. So like I just really appreciate that he's coming from a place of like gratitude, just happy to be there. And so and then on the flip side, Alec is just like constantly texting me. Like I think I have an unread text from him right now. Like he just wants feedback constantly. Like, what can I do better? Like this kind of thing. So they're just super hungry dudes that like been putting in the work. So I'm really happy they got the starting nod and were able to perform, because that's something that Uprising has always really struggled with, is a snake presence, and then B, depth. Like as soon as you get somebody like Mark that can be super consistent, and we're able to play off of it, we're able to make minor adjustments, and it's not a matter of him like dying 1 point off the break and then do something wrong the next point. It's like, no, he's making it every time, and he's not doing a lot of things wrong. Like, yeah, there's things we can do better, and we'll focus on that, but the consistency is what we've always needed. And then having Alec in the back center, like, shooting somebody off the break every time. Like if his gun's not hot, well, guess what? We got Graham now, or we got Brandon Olsen. Like those two dudes are just as good at shooting off the break as anybody. But, Alec had the hot gun in the tournament, so he made our jobs a lot easier.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. It's insane to, okay, look, if you guys are so deep now, and you had I think you had 12 at this last event, but if you're so deep, so you got a couple projects, and then you got guys like Mark and Alec, or Holly stepping up, and that's crazy. Because then,
yeah,
if you have Graham and Borromeo or whoever, it's like now there's just so many options, because there's a reason why these top teams. When I talk to Joey Blue, who's going to be his go-to guys, man, he doesn't necessarily know. I mean, there's times that Jacob Edwards, who's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, is not on the starting five at one of their events. And he was on the starting five at this last event for their win, and obviously he's a 101 legend. But it depends. This Hall, and then it's like who's healthy, who's on, who's dialed. Like there's so many different situations. So it's like the fact that you guys were so good that Graham Arnold wasn't on the starting five is insane, and a really good sign for Uprising, because Graham is legit. Graham has proven himself out there time and time again. He's a hell of a 101 player. He can close points. I definitely want that guy. I mean, we would always joke like, okay, if it's a low body situation for Uprising, there's Graham's going to be there, and be careful, because I've seen Graham pull off 2-on-4s before. So, and then same with Borromeo. This is a really good sign for you guys moving forward. If you can keep this team together and stay hungry, everyone's still, I feel, in the prime of their careers. It's going to be a scary team moving forward.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it was just great. Again, and then in the, but it was a little dicey in the prelims for you guys. And in fact, for the whole event, you guys went, 15-15, even on the count. You guys played a lot of close games. You beat the Bears by 1, lost to Damage by 1, beat Blast Camp by 1, lose to Heat by 2. Talk to me a little bit about the, because you had mentioned the word meta. That's definitely one of those catchphrases that a lot of people have been talking about. I actually think it's a very appropriate term, because it does describe, it takes a lot of information and puts it into one word. And so when you guys looked at this field layout, because again, a lot of divisional players out there watching this, trying to pick up some insights of wisdom. And when you looked at this layout, there were teams that were playing it faster and having success, teams that were playing it slightly slower, like you guys in Damage, even though I would not say Damage was playing it slow. I would say maybe a little bit more cautious, but as far as like points scored, but with how well Legion has done recently by ramping up the aggression and wanting to play a lot of points, and then Damage has won 4 tournaments in the past 3 years by being slightly more cautious and playing a little bit less points. X Factor's gone back and forth between wanting to play cautious and wanting to play reckless. But when you talk to me about the meta and the fact that you guys have the season on the line, if you guys show up and lose every single game, and New York Extreme has a really big event, which they did not, but maybe you guys are going into World Cup in last place with double points and are playing for your professional lives. So talk to me about that strategic decision. Is that based on personnel, style, the style that you like to play? Like, what is that based on? Because again, there's a lot of divisional players out there probably asking themselves that question. Are we a team that wants to play fast or can play fast? Like, what works for us based on what we have?
Yeah. Yeah. So first I got to backtrack because I forgot a very important piece of our team, our roster, and that's Cole Scott. So Cole doesn't get enough recognition because he is old school. He's one of the, original impact guys, I believe. Don't quote me, but he's won professional tournaments, and when he came back, he hadn't been played for a while, but watching his play style, I'm like, man, he gets it. Like, he has a very high IQ, and he's definitely somebody that we're very happy to have in the program. And as layouts come out and as we need that depth, having that super smart insert guy that's won tournaments definitely gonna be a huge value to us as well. I mean, he's already been performing all this year. I've been watching him closely, and so big fan of Cole Scott. Shout out. Sorry, I forgot you in the last segment. But to get to your question, Matty, so I think I did a lot of reflecting on this layout and how it played to our strengths. And anytime Uprising, or even going back further to DBS Kids, which is the core of Uprising, anytime we had a solid event, it was a layout that we could do the same thing every time, and there wasn't a lot of deviation that needed to happen. So I don't want us to have that identity. Obviously, you can't win tournaments doing the same breakout, but this layout allowed us to be able to work out from our primaries very easily. And so the big question as we prepared for the Windy City Major was, are we going to survive going to that Dorito can? Because it seemed like we could shoot that guy every single time. And so going into not getting another pro team look, going into practice, I was asking all the guys at the practice on Thursday, like, hey, you guys shooting that guy's break? Like, I don't think people can make it. Some teams like weren't giving me straight answers. And I'm like, all right, okay, I get it. I'm like, we don't even play you guys, but it is what it is. And so that's what we're really just trying to figure out is, like, can we make it to our primaries? Can we play from the inside out? Like, maybe if we're not making it to snake every time, or what have you. But once one thing that we established early on before we even knew the layout was, like, let's not play a lot of points against these heavy hitting teams. Like, so that's why on the webcast, I remember you commenting, like, we just won Alec had just won the one-on-one, the damage game. We were down 2-0, and he let, a couple minutes burn off the clock. That was our strategy the whole time, was like, let's make these games close. If we have to lose by one, we'll lose by one, because we've got two other very winnable games. Obviously, those very two winnable games, Bears and Blast Camp, went the distance. I think maybe both of them even went to overtime. So our margin wasn't where we wanted it to be, but we played our game. We stuck to our strategy, and ultimately it paid off. So really happy with how everything came together. I'm not going to lie to you and say I knew exactly how the field was going to play. I knew what the meta was. I had ideas, and then going into practice on Thursday at the event, we kind of solidified, okay, this is going to work for us. We're not going to have to go out there and take shots and make it into a huge barn burner, high scoring match. We're going to be able to play slow and controlled. And then, if we have to win by 1 point, we will. If we have to lose by 1 point, we will.
It was funny. There was I was rewatching one of the games today, taking my notes, and there was a moment where Rich was like, he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, yeah, I mean, Uprising's playing great right now. This was on Sunday. Might have been in the wild card round, but he's like, I mean, it's not a mystery what they're doing or where they're going. It's just that no one can stop it. Like Mark's getting in the snake. He didn't elaborate, but what was happening was that occasionally you guys would risk it on the top side or on the D side, but it was kind of, one of three different options that you guys had over there is where guys were going. Mark's going to the snake. You're going to either stop and ghost out into the blind zone and shoot a lane, or you're going to run out. It was like, it wasn't a mystery, but everyone was just having a really hard time shooting you guys because you guys were watching incoming streams. I mean, it was just well executed fundamental paintball. It was great. Because I can't keep you here all night. I do want to transition into your personal story a little bit here, because I just think that this is it's a testament to your grit, man. And when we watched you come up, you were, every generation, it's like a lot of people are like, oh, who's going to retire in this off season? And yeah, maybe we're going to see some retirements. People have proven that they can play until they're in their 40s these days. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll see a couple people retire, but there's a ton of hungry Lions down in the semi-pro division just itching for a chance to play pro. And there's a ton of hungry guys that are stars on their lower division pro teams too, or lower ranked pro teams. Like it's healthy. I'm not scared for the level of talent and what we're seeing. But there is a no bullshit moment for everyone at some period of time where you're like, dude, do I want to keep doing this? And for you, when I was kind of going back and re-looking at it, is that I think it was at 2018 in Chicago. Is that when you blew your shoulder out the first time?
I think it would have been Dallas. Same year. Dallas 18. Yep.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking at just like I was trying to remember and think back, and then I went back and looked at your APPA or PB leagues, but then there was this huge gap. So just talk me through, because you were this, because your game is a bit reckless. I mean, you're down to, I mean, back in the day, you're throwing your body over spots, jumping up, just stabbing guys, diving over positions. I mean, it was a very reckless style of paintball. And then you blow your shoulder out, and then you fix your shoulder and come back, blow your shoulder out again. And then now here you are on a team that just took, damage to the distance, who won the event. Mm-hmm. So if we could kind of bring it back to, when you first came up, and then you go to these different teams, coming out the Pacific Northwest, make the move to the Ironmen, then Vicious, Infamous, and then and you're making a name for yourself, and then you have this cataclysmic injury that was just, so maybe bring me to that moment. First time, blow your shoulder out. What was going through your mind?
Yeah. So what was going through my mind is, the injury is pretty common in paintball. Like, it happens to more people than it should. And so the thing that I remember was my dad taking me to urgent care as my shoulder is blown out, because he just happened to be at the event. And he's like, said in the car, he's like, well, that's probably it for your career, huh? And I'm just like, yep, probably, honestly, like, choice words, Pops, but like, yeah, probably, I'm probably done at this point. And the other thing that was going through my mind at the time was, I played with another friend of mine on Fusion, Jerry D'Amato, and he was an upcoming snake, just an amazing snake player, and super athletic guy. Blew out his shoulder and then just never really dove again. Like, he was still super solid for excessive and for us on Fusion, but I remember Thomas saying, like, yeah, like, Jerry blew out his shoulder and he was just like never really the same player. And no discredit to him, obviously very solid player still, but so that was going through my mind, is like, man, am I really going to be able to come back and do what I used to do? But I think it was for the best. I think my career is going to be a lot longer now that I'm not the one. I'm not, diving and trying to wreck myself, crawling down the snake or down the Doritos. So it was a long process, and it did take a lot of motivation just to keep going. But the one thing that I always reminded myself was, like, I'm never going to quit paintball when I feel like I've got more in the tank, or like, if my next tournament isn't better than the last, then, like, I'm never going to walk away. And so that's what kept me coming back. Like, I'd come back, have a decent event. Next event would be better. Then I'd hurt myself again. I'd be like, well, my rule is, like, if I'm just still playing better than I was, and I keep playing. So that's kind of been my mindset, at least during the injury phase. That was it. And then towards the end of Infamous, I was very hot and cold at times, but I always still was like, I've come this far. I've had 3 shoulder surgeries and all this crap happened to me. It's like, I can't just quit now. I feel like there's just so much left in the tank.
Man, again, that's so rare, dude. Like, I feel like most people that have had this situation would have probably just called it a day and be like, oh, I'll play 10 mans of rec ball. This is not for me anymore. I'm not going to try to be, one of the best players on a tip of the spear pro team anymore. Like, what is it in you that just has this, that where you have no quit, because I've literally watched you blow your shoulder out multiple times now. And every time I'm like, man, it was really fun watching Nate play. I hope he comes back, but that's going to be tough. And the first time it happens to somebody, the shoulder goes out and then, okay, cool. You pop it back in. All right. Cause again, like you said, very common injury. Like, knees and shoulders are the most, like, paintball is incredibly safe as long as you keep your goggles on. The things that do get messed up occasionally are knees and shoulders because you're diving around. So, and I've just, like you said, with Jerry D'Amato, it's just, I've just seen this throughout the years where it's like guy messes his shoulder up and then he doesn't want to dive anymore and can't reform his game. And then, but you've done it now multiple times. So what is it in you that's different? Where did you get that, bro? Like, where did you get that? What advice do you have to somebody out there that's trying to do with that? Like, it's just, it's impressive, my friend. It's very impressive.
Thank you. Well, I think I just, no pun intended, always had a chip on my shoulder. Like growing up in the Northwest, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to go pro. And so I was like just trying to like always find like another opportunity to play more paintball and finally get to the big, main stage. And so like after college, I moved from Seattle. I moved to Chicago. I lived on my sister's couch and because it was closer to the CXBLs. And it's like, I'm just going to play as much as I can, hope I'm get recognized. And then so as I just started getting recognized, got the Ironmen tryout, just felt like there's like glimpses of me being able to play my full potential, but I never really felt like, in this one thing that kills me is like, I'll have like a decent event and people be like, dude, you played amazing. And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys have not seen near like what I'm actually can do out there that I know I can do. And so I think, not that I'm like constantly seeking that external validation, but like I need to prove it to myself because just kind of like the Uprising thing, like I always know that they can do better. Same for me personally. I always know that I can play better and I'm just baby steps, 2 steps backwards for surgery, 3 steps forward, that kind of thing. So it's just always been in the back of my mind. It's like, man, like until I win a tournament, then I won't feel fulfilled. And that's just the mindset I've had my whole career.
Well, and then I feel like that even goes to, because sometimes, and this is another thing where guys sometimes I feel like get a little stuck on teams, because heading into this year, it was like you and Sam Silber kind of playing the same role on Infamous, and Sam had some decent looks out there, but you weren't getting as many looks. So then you decide to make the move to go over and play back with the boys on Uprising, knowing you're going to play every single point probably, and you're going to be a leader on the team. But sometimes you have to make these big decisions in your, paintball career or in your regular career too, whatever it may be. Paintball is in a lot of ways a metaphor for regular life in so many ways. That would take us another 5 hours to talk about. But talk to me a little bit about that decision, because I thought it was a great move, because I feel with your talent level and your hunger to, play the game and seeing what you can bring to bear, I just wanted to see you out there, but Sam did have some, Sam's a phenom, dude. Like Sam's really good, and if I'm Travis, I'm trying to keep you both on the squad because Sam could also dive into a bunker, blow his shoulder out, and now I got you, so, but yeah. What precipitated that move? Like, what was the final straw maybe?
Yeah. Well, honestly, the final straw was work. I do have a limited time off and I work remote, but got to the point where my boss was like, hey man, like you're taking a lot of time off. And like, I survived a round of layoffs earlier this year. And like, I think the work thing was like, I was doing my best to work remote while I was doing the 10-day thing, the practice through the event. But it was just, I was putting too much pressure on myself. And so when I did get the opportunity to get a spin out there, it just, I just couldn't stomach it or whatever it may be. So ultimately, I think it was a good move for both parties. Like, now they've got a smaller crew that they can really focus on. And to be honest, I was never taking Sam's spot. Like that dude, like you said, phenom, like most underrated player in paintball. I think that if he continues his level of commitment, he's going to be the next Karslev. So he's just awesome, solid dude. And so, yeah, I kind of knew that, like picking Sam up, super athletic, super fast, great gunfighter, that my role on Infamous was like kind of going to be more like a Callie or a Ryan Hall position, and then bringing Joe on as well. So it's like a lot of the same play styles there for Travis to choose from. And then, when I finally made a decision to leave Infamous, it wasn't like I was planning on going straight back to Uprising. I had always told them that I would come back at some point, but because they didn't have a team to practice for Chicago, they were going to be home. So I was like, all right, well, I can take one day off for an event. Like, now all I need to do is take the Friday off of the event. So that was the biggest driving factor. It was just real life.
Well, I mean, sometimes things work out in wondrous ways with, you know, the cosmic shake of the dice. And I feel like this is great because, yeah, I mean, Sam's a beast over there. And then those guys that you had said, I just, based on what we just saw, man, I absolutely love you in that 2 role. I feel like the 2 role is like you're a 2 now to me, you know, based on what we just saw. I mean, why in the hell not? It's like you came up as that crazy 1, but God, dude, you and Mark were so good working together. It was just beautiful to watch. Like it really made my paintball soul smile to see that. So I think that's your role from here on out, brother. Because it was the way you were feeling, you know, because you have the mobility and the paintball mind to, you know, get that quick off the break shot, hide in a blind zone and filter out, or then speed to get out there. And then the instinct says that 1 to filter in. And the biggest thing with the 2s is being able to drop the hammer in a situation where, you know, do we need a quick point? Do we have to close? Can I, you know, play off where my front player is and have that mobility and athleticism to make it happen? Can I filter in if that 1 does, you know, get shot? I mean, that if the 2 is that's the most difficult role in paintball, to do it at an elite level. And it's just going to be a huge asset for Uprising moving forward to have you in that position. And then, yeah, dude, with Sam, yeah, I mean, Sam's a special talent, dude. You know, like it was kind of cool that Level existed so that he could have that cocoon to develop his talent. And then now we're starting to see it. And I don't think we've even seen close to how good Sam could be. And then he's one of the reasons that I still think Infamous, if Travis can keep that team together, they have a kick-ass roster, you know, with how good Jonah's getting and the decisions that he's making. And then with Sam, and you have, you know, just like with you guys, you had threats on both sides. You know, you had both Eaton and Mark as kind of what evolved as, you know, mostly, you know, there's a couple other bodies in there, but for the most part, when I was looking up and seeing when the dust settled, it's like, okay, Mark's in a good spot, Eaton's in a good spot more than they weren't, and, you know, performing from those positions with amazing 2s and 3s being able to perform off of them with, you know, whether it's Borromeo or Graham or you or Alec or whatever, it doesn't matter. This is what is going to make Uprising scary moving forward. Before I let you go, though, let's talk about your bracket. So we got World Cup coming up here in about a month, November 8th through the 10th. Mark your calendars. Cup special. You've played a lot of these now, Nate. Maybe, you know, but kind of before, because we don't really have enough time to go deep into all these different brackets. But I definitely want to talk to you about your bracket and then maybe a couple other questions. But you know, because a lot of people say, Cup's just another tournament. Do you agree, disagree? Like, what makes Cup a little bit more special or a little bit more pressure filled than some of these other events?
I think for me, it's just that it's the last event, right? Like, you've worked all season towards it. I've never won a World Cup personally. The Uprising guys did. They won their World Cup before they went, but I wasn't able to make that event. So it's not like this thing. I don't make it up to be bigger than it needs to be. You know, double points is huge, lock up the series, all that kind of thing. But for me, it's like, all right, I've been working 4 events straight now for this last event. So that's just how I look at it. I don't think of it to be like, you know, if there's a tournament that you can win, it's got to be a World Cup. I just want to be able to, you know, continue to make steps in the right direction. And, you know, World Cup's kind of that last milestone.
So in your division, it's not an easy one. Dynasty, Revo, Blast Camp, Uprising, and Tauntauns. What are your thoughts?
Yep. Bracket of death. I love it. I would never. I would take death.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it unless you brought it up, but it might be the bracket of death, bro.
Anybody that's not saying it's the bracket of death just doesn't know what they're talking about, because Dynasty hasn't made 2 Sundays now. So I mean, they're gonna be hot for sure. Tauntauns had a great showing at World Cup last year, and all through the European series. And then Blast Camp, you know, I think Uprising has played them like three or 4 events this year, and so I'm sure they're hungry to get our number. And then Revo, obviously, they are super consistent, and now they got Cody
They
Mikowski's.
just missed. Yep. Well, they just missed their first Sunday, so they're going to be pissed. So Dynasty's missed 2 Sundays now in 2024. Revo just missed their first Sunday. They're going to be pissed off and picked up Cody. You guys just beat Blast Camp by 1, close game. Blast Camp has some firepower. Then you guys, and then Tauntauns are sitting in the last, which is just almost criminal to have the Tauntauns roster that they're about to bring with Hugo and Axel, bro. Like that. Yeah, I mean that's a nasty bracket. But whoever scraps out of that bracket and makes it, I mean, good luck whoever has to play those guys, because they're going to be tuned up after a bunch of just bar fights, a bunch of crazy, just nasty, disgusting Survivor Island stuff that's going to be going on in the prelims, which is going to make it really fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, well, have you done any? I mean, let's go Tauntauns, because it's Cup. Some of the fascinating stuff that happens at Cup is these other teams that come in from different parts of the world. Obviously, if you're drawing, Tauntauns, you're getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the foreign teams, because they are not just on paper, they are legitimately, objectively better than both Ron Holt Dynamite and Spider Fusion. I mean, that is not, that's not even fighting words, dude. Like, I mean, nothing against Spider Fusion or Ron Holt Dynamite, but Tauntaun's roster is nasty. They've been very successful the past couple seasons. I'm actually working on a Planet Eclipse documentary that should be coming out pretty soon. But this new version of the Tauntauns the past couple of seasons is the best Tauntauns that we've ever seen after 30 years that team's been around. Again, it's a bit criminal that they are sitting in tier 5 in this division, with you guys now taking a 1-point loss to Damage in overtime in the quarterfinals. It's like, this is if I was Revo or Dynasty, and I'm like, oh great, so we get Tauntauns as our tier 5 team and the best Uprising we've seen in years as our tier 4 team. Oh, come on, paintball gods, this is not fair. It's going to make the prelim super exciting for the fans, but this is a rough one. There's no other way to call it. There's nothing else to say other than that's a nasty, nasty, nasty bracket to be in for sure. Have you done how much have you watched the Tauntauns? Like, have you watched the Tauntauns a lot?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Watched everybody. Know exactly what they're going to come out and try to do. Honestly, I think all these teams, they better be more intimidated by us, because we're not intimidated by them. Like, if I had to pick who our first game would be, and it was one of the 3 European teams, I would want the best one. I don't want, the second tier team right off the bat, because I want to know what's going to work, and so that we have that momentum going through the rest of the bracket. I'm happy with it. Every tournament I've had that it's been a bracket of death, I remember feeling like we always play our best paintball. So if people consider, if you're in the bracket of death and you consider it a negative thing, then you're just, you need to wake up on the right side of the bed more often.
Oh, Nate, I love you. That's the mentality to have, brother. What's interesting about the Uprising versus Tauntaun, it would be same if Damage played up at Tauntauns, is that the Tauntauns are like, they're kind of the equivalent, if we were to use a boxing metaphor. I love boxing metaphors in paintball because it is very similar. They are on the edge of reckless aggression. I mean, if you look at how Axel and Hugo play, they push the issue. They want to take ground. The way their 2s and 3s play, they play off, if the one's going to make a big move or take the 50, they're going to take another big, like they take big bites. They take, big bites off the break. They do a lot with aggression. You guys were definitely aggressive in certain moments, but much more methodical to close things out once you had position. So you're kind of dealing with it's almost like, again, a hyper aggressive fighter that's going to sit out there and start throwing blows. And then with Uprising, it's like, okay, are they going to come out and try to meet them with aggression? Are they going to try to absorb that aggression and then, get those kills and then, and then start fighting back? Or how's that going to go? I don't know. I would ask you, but you would probably not going to tell me necessarily. So, But I just, for the fans out there, like, again, I'm not going to ask you. I mean, I kind of got to ask the question. You can tell me if you want, but I don't think you're going to do it. I just think that to me, watching Uprising play Tauntauns is going to be a really fun game to watch, because that is two contrasting styles. Tauntauns are probably going to send it, and if the Tauntauns decide to try to, okay, well, because they're going to watch tape on you guys, and they're going to be like, well, they do like, obviously they're sending bodies, but then they're going to get to those bodies. They get those bodies in spots. They play smart. Like, do we, how do we deal with this? I don't know. To me, that's a fascinating stylistic matchup. That's going to go down in the prelims, before we even get to Sunday. So I can't wait to see that one. So I know there's no question there, but it's just I'm really, and then the Dynasty. Well, it's Dynasty and Revo too. Again, it's like Dynasty and Revo. Like, what are we gonna see at a Dynasty and Revo, bro? Like, Revo didn't make Sunday for the first time. They get Cody, and they're gonna be pissed off because, like, you talk about a team that's pissed off for greatness. Revo's, you talk to those guys, they're tired of being a team that's like just in the mix. They want to get after it. They want to be able to, to do what X Factor's doing right now, make it to the finals. They want to win tournaments. They've never won a tournament. And then Dynasty, the best team ever, not making 2 Sundays, dude. I mean, that's going to be a fierce team to play at World Cup. So yeah, make sure everyone tune in for bracket D. But I guess, Nate, before we let you go, as far as these other brackets, so just real quick, this will be my last question, and I'll let you go. So bracket A, B, and C, it's Shock, Hurricanes, Bears, Diesel, and Dynamite in A. Damage, Fit, Aftermath, Notorious, and Fusion in B. And then Impact, Ironmen, Infamous, ML Kings, and New York Extreme in C. As far as a discussion over the most interesting bracket and what you think is the next hardest bracket of those 3, who would it be?
Most interesting bracket. I always pick the team with Diesel just because they're in a lower tier, and everybody wants. I mean, personally, I just want to see them do well. Like, I'm a big Mouse fan, big Mark Johnson fan, and I think that anytime Clint has the freedom to do whatever he wants, that team's gonna be, they're scary. So bracket A, definitely most interesting. And honestly, that one's probably going to be the second most competitive one, in my opinion.
Well, Spider Fusion's coming out of South America, and so we, a Brazilian team, haven't really seen much of them at all. So on paper, Dynamite's better. So the fact that Diesel on paper is better than Notorious, and they're both in tier 4, Dynamite in tier 5 with Fusion, yeah, I think that's unarguable as well too. And then you get the Bears with Himman coming in. They're not going to have Hugo at this next one. They're coming off their worst performance of the year. That is a team that's made a bunch of Sundays. They also missed their first Sunday at the last event. And then Hurricanes have also had a rough go of it with the 2nd, a 13th, 12th, 13th. They have only made one Sunday this year. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the interesting one with Shock. Dude, and Shock lost a game against X Factor in the quarterfinals where they were up by 3 and they let X Factor score 6 unanswered points. So they're going to be pissed off for greatness as well too.
Yeah. I love me some Todd Martinez and Shock. So I'm always rooting for those guys secretly as well.
All right, so this will be the last question. Okay, so bracket A: Shock, Hurricanes, Bears, Diesel, Dynamite. Who are the two teams that come out of that bracket as 1 and 2?
I'm gonna say Shock and Diesel.
Ooh, okay, all right. So, I mean, that maybe would save Diesel season. They need a good performance as well because they're on the precipice of potentially getting relegated if New York Extreme shows up. So, yeah, it's getting crazy for Cup. Hey, Nate, thank you so much for your time, bud. It's been so awesome to see you come back. And yeah, Uprising I mean, it's going to be a fun team to watch at Cup in the bracket of death. But if you guys can keep this roster together, this is a really strong team moving forward. I think this last event might have been a turning of a chapter in the story overall for Seattle Uprising, and it's been a blessing to be able to watch it, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in the future. So again, thank you so much for your tenacity. Glad you're still around, and I wish you the best of luck in Orlando. And again, everyone, make sure you mark your calendars November 8th through the 10th. as the final battle of the year in Major League Paintball is going to be going down. Yeah, and hopefully, you know, where we're playing didn't get too badly destroyed by all this hurricane stuff. But this is kind of a constant theme throughout the past 30 years. I feel like every couple of years we're going either riding out a hurricane or going in right after a hurricane. So hopefully everything will be okay, and the paintball gods will spare us from any ridiculousness. It's just, it is what it is. Anybody
well,
you want to give
Matty.
a shout out to before we sign off?
Just the team, obviously, for letting me come back and do my thing, and you know, remaining committed. Jimmy Hickey, the owner. But you know, like I said, it takes a village. So everybody on our staff, and the local field, DBS Paintball, for you know, making us number one priority when it comes to layout weekend. So yeah, thank you everybody that in the Pacific Northwest that has our back.
Again, Nate, thank you so much, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll have a bunch of more shows next couple weeks here as we lead into the biggest event of the year. I'll see you guys then.